We are 6 days away from our trip to Disneyland, and if you're like me, you're probably on a tight budget and looking for any way you can to save money. Well, here's some of the ways that we're saving money on our trip to Disneyland. We are leaving for Disneyland in 6 days, and so excited. Now, if you've watched too many of my videos, you've probably heard me talk about my budget and lack of funds and living off of a teacher's salary and a pastor's salary that doesn't pay. So our money tends to be very, very tight. And I am so grateful for my patrons, for their financial support, as well as for Alex of TChess Media, who's covering a lot of the costs of this trip. In fact, the vast majority of them. But there are still things that we have to pay for, still ways that we're trying to find money and scrounge and save, and there are a lot of little things that you can do at Disneyland to help save some money. Now, you're kind of stuck on the park ticket cost. There's not going to be a whole lot you can do about that. There really aren't discounts on Disney park tickets. And then your lodging is also going to be kind of a fixed expense. Disneyland offers some alternatives, though, that Disney World doesn't offer. There are only 3 Disney resorts at Disneyland, but there are a lot of hotels right across the street, and you can find them from all sorts of price points. So if you're looking for just a cheap bed to sleep in, you can find that within walking distance of Disneyland. Or you can go all the way up and find an expensive resort. We have 5 adults going with us. One of our options was to get multiple rooms and spread out that way. Well, we actually found a hotel that offers a 2-room suite that is going to work beautifully for us. It's got 2 queen-size beds, it's got a sofa bed, and then it has an ottoman. And by the time we figured all this in, we're actually going to be paying less for a 2-room suite that looks right at the park than we would for separate hotel rooms or for one of the Disney resorts. It's an easy walk over to the parks, and it actually comes out cheaper. So when you are looking for a place to stay, be sure to explore all the options that are around. You may be able to find something that's just as nice or even nicer than what you were looking at for less money. Also be aware of transportation to and from the airports, assuming that you are flying. There are different options. You can go everything from a shared shuttle van up to the Disney Express, up to renting a limo. So depending upon what your budget is, but we shopped around and we've been poking and prodding, and I actually found a private shuttle van for the 5 of us for less than what it would have cost us to have the shared shuttle van, and much less than what Disney's Express would have cost us. We're actually paying $150 round trip from LAX for all 5 of us. That's a pretty good deal when you start figuring the budgets. Now, if you want to save even that, you can actually fly into a couple of airports that are closer, but what I found was flying into LAX for 5 adults was much cheaper than flying into those other airports. It was also easier to coordinate schedules with us coming from Orlando and Missouri. But one of the ways I saved money on our plane tickets too was frequent flyer miles. I'm a member of Delta's frequent flyer mile program, and I have been saving points and earning points and doing everything I can. So every trip I've taken, I generally fly Delta and I look for cheap fares, and I've actually flown as cheap on Delta as I would on most of the other cheaper ones. But then I also use this guy. Yes, this is an American Express Delta points card. So as I'm traveling, I will use this and add points onto it. This little card has managed to get me cheap plane tickets. In fact, we're flying on Delta from Missouri to LAX and back for $180 round trip for 3 of us. Then there's taxes and fees and stuff on top of that. But the cheap airlines can't even match that. Why? Because I got to turn in points that I had gotten on my card and was able to knock the cost of the plane fare down. That was one way to save some big money. So evaluate your options as far as flying carefully. Look at the airlines, maybe even changing airports a little bit. For us, we're flying out of Kansas City instead of our local airport because that saves us about $400 a ticket. This little card also does one other thing for me when I fly with Delta. Because it's the gold card, each one of the passengers in my group actually can check in a suitcase free. That, depending upon your airline, is $30 to $50 a bag saving. With Delta right now, it's $30. So we're saving $90 on the way out there and $90 on the way back, simply because I've got a gold Delta card. That is a way to save some money, is get a card with the company that you're flying with, assuming you're flying. Driving can also be cheaper. Of course, you will have parking fees when you're driving that you may not if you fly and take a shuttle van in. But those are all things to think about, and one way to save some money. Food is another way to save money. Disneyland is also different from many other parks where if you go to a lot of parks, you're kind of trapped at the park. This is especially true at Walt Disney World. Even if you manage to get out of the park and out to the parking lots, which are a pretty good distance, you're very likely staying at a Disney hotel, or it's going to take you a long time to get off property to go get something else to eat. It's not convenient, it's not easy, it doesn't work to go outside the parks and eat, so you just stay captive and eat the high prices. That's the same thing oftentimes at other parks, like Cedar Fair parks and Six Flags parks, and it's not unusual. Except at Disneyland. Disneyland, because of the way the area is, you can actually walk right outside the park, and downtown Disney is off to one side, which has some other dining options. Or if you're on a really tight budget, you can cross Harbor Boulevard, and there is McDonald's and Jim Boy's and a pizza place and Denny's and IHOP, and there are several options right across the park that are as cheap or even cheaper than what's in the park. So you can save money that way. Walk outside, it's not a very far walk, about the equivalent of 3 or 4 blocks, maybe. You can get some food. There's also a CVS and a Walgreens up the road a little bit, so you can buy snacks that way, or pack them. You are allowed to bring snacks and other munchies into the parks. So if you really want to save money, you can even make sandwiches and take those into the parks with you and carry your food in. It's a great way to save some money over the expensive cost of the meals at Disneyland. Because if you're eating in the parks, you can plan on a minimum of $15 a meal. And honestly, if you want to eat semi-decent, you're probably looking at $20 to $25 a meal inside the parks for what you can get outside for under $10. A couple of other ways to save some money. There's one other credit card that can actually do some great things for you, and that's this little guy, the Disney Visa card. Again, this is another way that as you make purchases on the card, you save up points, you get reward dollars for it, and those reward dollars actually turn into a redemption card. And you can then use this card essentially as cash. So I have money on this card here that I get to take into Disney with me and use it just like it's a gift card or something like that. And it's just simply reward points from the Disney purchase card here. This card will also save you money in other ways as well. If you make a merchandise purchase inside the parks, anything over $50, you get 10% off, with a few exceptions there. Also, if you're dining in the parks, this card will work at many of the dining locations and give you 10% off. There are other different discounts that apply with this card too, and you may even find some other specials around. So this can save you a little bit of money in the parks as well, in addition to the reward dollars, and there's other perks as well. At the Disney parks, there are actually special character meet and greets that are reserved only for people with these cards. And you'll find they usually have very short lines and include the photos, and it's a great way to meet some characters without having to wait in a line and get more time with them as well. So this is another way that can work. And if you're worried about interest rates and stuff, just pay it off every month and it's great. I actually put my utility bills and have them get paid to my 2 credit cards, and then I just pay the credit cards for the utility bills each month. Doesn't cost me any interest that way, pays utilities, and I'm getting reward points for paying what I would pay anyways. One other way to save some money, a lot of people are into pins, and I'm definitely no exception to that. I love collecting my pins. But pins are expensive. The cheap pins in the parks are $8 or $9 now. And you can spend a lot of money really quickly. Well, there are ways to save money on pins without going to Amazon and eBay and buying all the fakes and the scrappers and the junk pins cheap. Please don't buy those. You're contributing to all sorts of stuff that you shouldn't be that way. Don't buy the fakes. However, if you look online, there are places that you can buy legitimate pins from private sellers and people who do it for a living. I'm a member of a group called Pinderella, and she sells real authentic pins, even the grab bag pins, and you can pay about $2 a pin or less compared to the $8, $9, $10 that you would pay. It gives you pins to come in and have to trade with. Any pin that a cast member's wearing on their lanyard, you can trade a pin and you're good to go. So I buy my traders cheap that way, and then take them into the park and look for the pins and the cast lanyards that I want. And I can trade in real pins, get real pins back, and spend a lot less money. Honestly, if you're going to think about pin trading, that is what I would suggest. So look for Pinderella on Facebook. She does have a website as well, and there are some other legitimate pin trading sites. A good thing to look for is if they've got grab bags that have the mystery bag pins, you're going to be good to go with those. So those are all some ways to save money at Disneyland. There are other ways as well. If you like Disney shirts, they're oftentimes cheaper to buy outside of the park than inside the parks. So you can find souvenirs and stuff outside the parks cheaper than in them as well. There's all sorts of other ways, but those are some of my favorites and some of the ones that we're using on this trip. If you've got other tips and tricks to save money, I'd love to hear them. Share them in the comments below. I'd love to know how you did a cheap Disneyland trip too. So please share your secrets. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and sharing the video and subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you to my patrons and to Teach Us Media for making this trip possible. I am in awe. Thank you. We're counting down the days, and when this was first proposed, we were just like, really? This is awesome. So thank you to those that are sponsoring the trip and helping to make it happen. If you want to know more about Patreon and supporting me, or more about fan pages and merchandise and stuff, please check the description below. Thank you so very much for watching, and God bless. And you can go everything from a shared shuttle bus. If you'd like to know about my merchandise, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you'd like to know whenever I've got a new video posted, well, make sure you hit that button right up there and subscribe. If you'd like to watch another one of my videos, I've got a great one for you right here. And if you'd like to be like these wonderful people here and support me financially on Patreon, well, make sure you check the link right there. There's even some extra perks for them. Thank you so much, and God bless.